Alrighty, Uncle Roddus back again. Nice bit of jazz. Okay, so this is kind of like a remake video because I made not a cock up, but I did two unpackaging videos of some recent arrivals from Discogs, and on the day the packages arrived I opened them up on camera. So I had two videos, I joined them together, made up in one video out of the two. I thought I had it saved on my desktop somewhere on my laptop, and I somehow managed to delete it. I really don't know how. So I had to go back through all my listings to see which was the ones I'd missed, which records I'd missed. So hopefully I'm not going to show anything that I have already shown. But anyway, before I get to those records, this playing in the background, Parallel 37, is a compilation on Ode Records of New Zealand jazz. But what happened was there were some overseas jazz artists in New Zealand or got invited to New Zealand to play with some of our local jazz musicians. For instance, John Schofield and Milt Jackson are two names that I would know from overseas out of some of the other names. The rest of them, and maybe some others too, but I'm not sure who's who yet. Yeah, so they got together and they played together and made this album. Frank Gibson Jr. and Mike Knock are really well known New Zealanders who I've got, and Andrew Brown and Brian Smith. I've got records by, or they play on records that I already have. This is, yeah, so it's sort of like a compilation. So I found this at Penny Lane for a really good price, so I was really rapt from that. And another couple of new arrivals. This reissue, and I think expanded, is the Suburban Lawns, out of the US from 1980-81, I think, from somewhere around there, sort of a bit offbeat, post-punky sort of album, reissued Futurismo, fairly recently, last 12 months or 2 years, not sure of the date actually. So this isn't the cover that was on the original. I think the original slightly different cover, and this has got some additional tracks. Yeah, I only actually played this once so far. Yeah, out of print since 1981. Yeah, oh, it's on coloured vinyl. It's on coloured vinyl too. Maybe have a look. Forgot about that. Oh yeah, that's right. It's on this quite cool splatter. Orange splatter. Wow, that's pretty impressive, eh? That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So yeah, that arrived from Flying Out finally. They had it listed on their website and they didn't actually have it in stock, so I had to wait a wee while. So that's quite cool. That's quite interesting music. Get back in there. So, get back to the New Zealand compilations. One that I had on my want list that someone on Facebook offered me a copy because he had two copies apparently, and this is in really good nick. It's called the New Zealand Indie Mixtape. 12 tracks from around about what, 2006? No, sorry, 2010. I'm not sure, but I believe it's supposed to be a numbered edition of 300. Well, there's the 300, but no one actually bothered numbering this particular copy of it. Might be a selling point in future. Haha. Yeah. Basically, never heard of any of the bands on here, surprisingly. So, and I did a wee bit of research on Discogs, and a lot of them didn't actually release much else, apart from a couple or three of them did some CDs. This is on translucent blue vinyl. Yeah. One of them I knew. Cyrock, because I showed her he put out a record recently, a very limited edition 10-inch record, so that was really the only name that I knew off this compilation, but there's some pretty cool, so it is indie pop, indie rock, it's pretty cool. Okay, so the ones that I've shown in the video that I deleted, which were, like I say, these were Discog purchases, and from New Zealand actually, from New Zealand seller. Space
Space Case 2. So the middle LP of the Space Case 3 albums that they put out in the early 80s, early to mid 80s. This one from 1983, again on Ode Records. And our man Brian Smith, who I just showed you on the back of that record before, and Frank Gibson Jr. are on this. And actually, there's another name, Bruce Lynch. Did I see his name on the front of here? Bruce Lynch, I did too. So yeah, nearly half the group is playing on this record that's playing in the background. So yeah, Space Case have 3 albums of really cool kind of jazz fusion. I've said before, and I've shown the other records, they were originally known, or most of these guys were actually in a band called Dr. Tree, which is a really funky fusion band. Dr. Tree is a really great record, but to be honest, I like the Space Case stuff better. It is actually, the musicians have developed a bit, and they're a lot better, playing better and a tighter unit. And the same package that was arrived in is this little beauty here, New Zealand Electronic Music. From 1975, this is a 3 LP box set of electronic classical type or experimental or classical type music from the middle of the century, or late, sorry, the late, no, actually most of this was recorded in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s. Comes with a booklet. This is pretty hard to find in New Zealand, and I've been looking for it for a while. So it's out on the Kiwi Pacific label, and which is the label that has been putting out all of those Composer Series records that I've been showing over the last couple of years. No point in showing you the records, but so Douglas Lilburn, again our #1 composer of classical music, who later in his career, once the facilities became available to him, started making more abstract, weird electronic music. Jack Body, John Cousins, John Rimmer, all on this. This is an excellent set. I am so rapt to get it. I mean, like I say, it's pretty rare. There's a second reissue of this that came out very similar time, and there's not a lot of difference. The only difference is the label on the record that identifies it as being a different pressing or a different issue. And another couple of very minor things where I think the text is on the other side of the cover or whatever someone said. The difference is that the second edition sells for like $500 on Discogs, whereas this one goes for about 100 or just over 100. So yeah, I paid just over $100 for this, or $140, which is more than I like to pay. But I did get offered the other one from someone I know on Facebook, but when he said that it was the second edition, I said, well, you're not going to want to sell it to me for what I'd like to pay for it. So I don't know whether he's actually sold it or not yet, but this is really cool, really, really cool. There are a couple of 3 other volumes, just single LP volumes of this type of music that I still want to get my hands on. So more New Zealand compilations. So another bunch that arrived from Discogs. This lot here from Seller in, I don't know, Europe, somewhere it was now. The class of 81, new music, New Zealand 1981, on Propeller Records, that's right. Propeller Records were the people who put out their infamous AK-47 compilation from the Auckland punk scene in the late 70s. This has the fantastic Rebel Truce, The Man Inside, which is the best song on the album, and it's really cool. Bit of a mix of well-known and not so well-known. Blam Blam Blam, Screaming Mimes, and the Pneumatics were all pretty well-known New Zealand bands back in the 80s. But some of the other names I really didn't know that well. Vivid Militia, Youth for a Price, Rhythm Method, although that sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah, I only played this once so far, but not sure how good the rest of the music is just yet. I haven't really had a decent listen to it, but I mean, Blam 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 are always fantastic. They're really good. And then this one, and I'm pretty sure this is I've got these right. This is the ones that all come together. This is called Off Our Shoulders. This is an offset issue compilation from Christchurch, here in Christchurch in 1987. I have shown a couple of offset records. They are very hard to get your hands on. They were a very reasonably short-lived label, and a lot of the stuff's been getting reissued by a company out of Germany at the moment. But so this is a collection of women-dominated groups in Christchurch. This was reissued under a different name as a double LP. It had been expanded, and I showed that record many moons ago on one of my very early videos. But the quality of the mastering or the pressing, I don't know what it was absolutely unlistenable. It was really bad, so I took it back to the shop, and but this is the original version of that, so really pleased to have that, and that wasn't hugely expensive. And now the cream of the crop, Fit for Kings, a compilation of peripheral New Zealand music, series 2. So this is a record label called Crawl Space Records, and Crawl Space Records was also a shop up in Auckland. Now, I'd never been to it or even heard of it until recently, long gone now. This compilation was, is it 2001 or something? I don't know. Fair while back, yeah, I think. But, I mean, the shop's been closed for years, and but the record label put out a lot of lathe cut, underground noise, experimental sort of stuff, and this is a compilation that they put together. I understand, yeah, that there was, I think there's another one on CD, the first volume, because this is series 2, it says. Anyway, this is a limited edition of 150, and this is number 72 of 150, and apparently, and it's frustrating when it happens. There's a card inside there, and it keeps snagging on it. The story was that this got released out into the wild in very limited numbers, and the person or one of the people who was involved in the release actually held on to quite a few of the copies and still has a box of them up in his flat in Auckland somewhere, and releases them out in very, very small numbers into the wild now and again, and hasn't done so for a while. You're not going to pick this up for under $100. This is pretty much a mint condition copy that I picked up, and the music is absolutely fantastic. The Sandoz Lab Technicians have a track on here. I've showed their record in another video that I picked up, one of their recent records. Parjab, I think it is, pronounce them. They were really cool. That was a track that really got me interested in this, that Chris played on one of his shows a while back. Empirical Pit Viper. This is really loud stuff, really loud, noisy, drony, you know, out of this world stuff. It's such a good compilation. So yeah, rare as hen's teeth, and really pleased to have it. And so yeah, that is the remake of the 2 videos that I somehow deleted for your viewing pleasure, and that brings me up to scratch with all my recent records. And yeah, things will be slowing down now. I've spent way too much money on records recently, although there are quite a few new releases coming out I do want to get my hands on. And tomorrow I'm going to one of the very first and few record fairs in Christchurch. Tomorrow morning, actually. The last one that we had anywhere near here was over in Littleton, I think last year, and I did really well out of that actually. That was some good scores. So a man from the North Island who runs the New Zealand Vinyl Fairs page on Facebook has come down here and set up, he's doing a bit of a tour actually of ones, and I think he's doing one in Nelson, or has done one in Nelson and one in Christchurch. I'm not sure if he's doing others around the South Island, but pretty rare events, record fairs in Christchurch, so be interesting to see how it goes. So expect probably a video of that made in the next couple of days, although I will be in town all day tomorrow after the record fair. I've got other chores to do, and then there's a gig on tomorrow night at Space Academy, I think it is again, so I'm going to be going to that. So been to a gig last night as well, so my ears are still ringing from that. That was extremely loud. Belter Space with our Wax Chattels, which was a fantastic band, but it was just, yeah, they really cranked it up, and man, my ears were buzzing when I got home. Okay, that's me again, so catch you next time. Cheers.